Greetings. This is iVideo. My name is John Savers, a host, and today we will take a look at a new series. We'll begin a new series concerning the area of World War II. There are many facets to it, and we will look at more than one as time goes by, but try to concentrate on one particular area as we go. Now, let me just say parenthetically, today is August 31st, 1999. It's about 102 degrees, maybe outside, 100. I have a summer cold, so I'm not at my best, and I apologize for that, but we will plunge on anyhow because opportunities avail themselves, and we'll take it and hope for the best, trust in the Almighty, and we'll have the strength to go on and do this and do it in an acceptable way. So with that preamble and the old slogan, the show must go on, we will begin. Now, when I was growing up as a boy in the 50s and early 60s, besides sports and games, perhaps my primary interest was going to the movies. And in those days, there were, of course, different genre. There were westerns, which I loved, and the various kinds of movies that are made. And amongst those that I saw, there were plenty of them, were World War II movies. Now, most of these movies dealt with what you might call battle movies, with aspects of the overall war and stories of heroism and so forth, and I enjoyed them, and they were very popular at that time. Now, as time went by, I noticed that the interest in World War II continued unabated. When the new audio-visual medium, television, reached general distribution, it continued this pattern of showing events relative to World War II. There are many popular programs such as Hogan's Heroes and so forth. And this continued into the present time. In fact, many young people today, high school students and so forth, I might sometimes be a little amazed by all this to do about World War II. But at any rate, it is an important event in this century, and it is an historical event. Part of the interest in this particular event, World War II, its facets, has been for me the snowballing of the aspect of the concentration camps, the so-called death camps, which were a little alluded to in the 50s and 60s. Now, as a kid, we understood that there had been this unwholesome relationship, and we had knowledge that something like 6 million Jews had perished, and we all thought this was a terrible thing and so forth. But we were not really seeing this on the TV so much, or in the movies, and allusions to death camps were scarce. There were a few films such as Stalag 17 and whatnot, but Hogan's Heroes and so forth. But the really terrible aspect of the concentration camps were not really shown, not at that time. But this particular aspect over time sort of snowballed until it reached, after charges and accusations, denials, reparations, atonement, repentance, all kinds of feelings and facts. It reached what amounted to a religious memorial to the Jews known as the Holocaust. Now, this is presently how things stand. From my point of view, the concentration camps were just one of the many facets of interest about World War II, historical events, events that were open for discussion, events that were open for evaluation and study and further knowledge. But over time, it became apparent that there were certain areas that you went into only with peril, particularly in academic. As a matter of fact, right now in Europe, people have been thrown in jail for denying so-called aspects of the Holocaust. And this unwholesome event itself is something which raises eyebrows, I think, amongst those who find freedom of thought and expression dear. But this situation, fortunately, has not gained dominance here yet. So, for that particular reason, I thought it might be timely to take a look at this, which from the point of an Englishman or German or Frenchman or Italian, even Russian or East European, Irishman, Scot, is a historical event which should be something that could be studied, even the concentration camps. But as I have mentioned, unless a Jew is doing this studying, there is a certain peril in the project, and even a Jew who comes up with the wrong answers, poses the wrong questions, may find himself or herself in trouble. So, with this caveat, we will nevertheless plunge on, because to do otherwise would be dishonest. We do note, as we in passing, that allusions to the importance of this particular matter to Jews have been cited, and we will right now cite something from the Washington Post to that effect, just to put that in your mind. Albright, her spokesman James P. Rubin, said it in an interview yesterday, routinely encourages world leaders to visit the memorial, but with regard to Chairman Arafat, it is particularly important that he visit because the horrors of the Holocaust were a defining event on Jewish history. Now, this is from the Washington Post, Saturday, January 17, 1998, page A13. Now, I'm sure that you did note the expression defining event. And, of course, many have supposed the Holocaust now to be the preeminent holy day, so to speak, or holy aspect, more so than Purim or any other holy day within the Jewish calendar, as it must be if it is a defining event, I would guess. But the fact of the matter is that do Jews really have a right to be the exclusive definers of this event? Is this a world event? And if so, well, why should not people of the world other than Jews have a say in the definition? As I say, Englishman, German, French, American, whatever, they, if they are interested, should have a voice in the defining. As long as it is done honestly, what could be the possible problem? And yet that does not seem to be the case. If the Holocaust is exclusively Jewish history, why is it being taught generally in American public schools? And why are students being led to Holocaust memorials and so forth if this is, in fact, exclusively a Jewish event? We do note the desire to share aspects of it, the guilt aspect, but is this wholesome? Is this what public education is about? I don't think so. But at any rate, let us take a look at the interesting ramifications of such a thing. Please consider. Unknown victim. Eva Langton, a San Francisco housewife, went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. recently, and, as all visitors, was handed a folded card with the name and birthday of a Holocaust victim. When Mrs. Langton opened her card, she was astonished to read, Eva Heyman, February 13. Mrs. Langton was born Eva Heyman on February 13 in Berlin. This is from the Spotlight, March 25th, 1996, page 2. Now, people, this situation really underlines a truth, and that is that a fact is not a fact if it is merely an assertion. It is a fact because it is verifiably true. Now, the use of, for instance, a conclusion in law with nothing to back it up, a legal conclusion of this sort is worthless. It is almost what might be considered null and void from the outset because it is just an assertion. Now, there are many people who basically are doing this, and we see them in government, in so-called education, and just on the streets. It's just, it's amazing the kinds of comments that you can hear on the street with people saying, trust me, or believe me, or and that kind of stuff. But actually the response should be, why should I? If you cannot bring forth facts, why should I accept it as such? But there are many people who are now quite hostile to the idea of truth, fact, law, and so forth, because they believe that truth can hurt and facts can be painful, and therefore great care should be used in employing them, and it is something that the general population should not be exposed to. I don't subscribe to that sort of notion. I think it's injurious. But there are many people who do, and we find this kind of assertion far more common than you would suppose, and it is, in point of fact, a threat to the First Amendment, to our notion of freedom of speech, which freedom of expression, that is, we're talking about ideas, and of course we see this threat in such vehicles as the photo and print giant, the Washington Post, when it speaks of responsible voices. It does not want any idea it doesn't like to have the light of day cast upon it, but rather to be closeted, hidden, and deep sixed, and all that kind of stuff as not responsible voices. We see the same kind of hostility and effort to destroy opposing thoughts, opposition thoughts all the time. Consider the following. In 1989, I began to understand which way the wind was blowing when Kaneta Ivey, a leader of the student government at Stanford and a major in African American studies, declared, "We don't put as many restrictions on freedom of speech as we should." Not long afterward, an ecumenical letter appeared in the Stanford Daily signed by the African American Law Students Association, the Asian American Law Students Association, and the Jewish Law Students Association. They sternly called for harsh penalties for offensive speech. Traveling to various campuses, public and private, I heard from students who had stopped asking such questions in class as whether affirmative action should enfold the children of black middle-class parents. These students prefer to escape into silence rather than being called racist. Some of that is still going on. Now, this is an article that was written by Mr. Nat Hentoff in his column, which appears on the op-ed page of the Washington Post, Saturday, January 17, 1998, page 825. Now, for myself, I find the words of Mr. Hentoff disturbing and dismaying. And I do not intend to be one of those who grows quiet, to go quietly into that good night, that dark night. If I see a flame, a house with a flame and so forth, it's my feeling that I should alert those within, and I intend to do that. I look upon this effort pretty much as I look upon the effort of my fathers in going off to fight the Axis forces in World War II. It's not something that they really wanted to do, that they would prefer to stay home and have a normal life. And in fact, as with William Wallace in the film Braveheart, who would have loved to just have a domestic existence in his homestead, his freehold with his wife, have children, be a respected member of his clan, and so forth. When events turn in a certain direction, one cannot help but to stand up and oppose that force, if it is evil, which has come upon the scene. I believe the attack on fundamental notions such as freedom of speech, expression, ideas, and so forth, which is growing ever stronger in this country, should and must be combated, and I intend to do so. Now, there will be many people who would be hostile to my having a series which looks into this historical world event, World War II, and the concentration camps, and to try to give the people who watch this program a factual, fair understanding of exactly what happened. But to these people, I say, get the hints, and we'll go ahead. So on this note, I'd ask you to consider the first question, which is a question of numbers. I was reared upon the notion of 6 million. According to the Nuremberg official documents, 4 million at Auschwitz alone. So with this in mind, let's look at the latest facts, because if facts were wrong then, they may be wrong now, or even more so. So let's take a look. Poland has cut its estimate of the number of people killed by the Nazis in the Auschwitz death camp from 4 million to just over 1 million. The new study could rekindle the controversy over the scale of Hitler's final solution. Franziska Piper, director of the Historical Committee of the Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum, said yesterday that according to recent research, at least 1.3 million people were deported to the camp, of whom about 223,000 survived. The 1.1 million victims included 960,000 Jews, between 70,000 and 75,000 Poles, nearly all of the 23,000 Gypsies sent to the camp, and 15,000 Soviet prisoners of war. Samuel Krakowski, head of research at Israel's Yad Vashem Memorial for Jewish Victims of the Holocaust said the new Polish figures were correct. The 4 million figure was let slip by Captain Rudolf Hess, the death camp's Nazi commander. Some have bought it, but it was exaggerated. Plaques commemorating the deaths of 4 million victims were removed from the Auschwitz Museum earlier this month. This is from the Facts and the Myths about the Holocaust, published by AFC under Andrew F. Carter, Washington, D.C., and it's on page 4, citing an article on July 17, 1990 in the Washington Times, which was a reprint of an article appearing in the respected London Daily Telegraph. Furthermore, please consider the following. French Holocaust researcher Jean-Claude Pressac, in his book Les Crématoires d'Auschwitz, scaled the figure down even further. He estimated in total that about 775,000 died at Auschwitz. Now, people, hold on to your wig hats here. In the film made in 1955, Night and Fog, which has been shown to millions of school children around the world as the truth about the Holocaust, the figures of those who died at Auschwitz is said to be 9 million. Now, as amazing as all that may seem to you, I still have some further interesting matters on the question of numbers. Consider. After the war, propaganda estimates spiraled to heights even more fantastic. Kurt Gerstein, an anti-Nazi who claimed to have infiltrated the SS, told the French interrogator Raymond Cartier that no less than 40 million concentration camp internees had been gassed. In his first signed memorandum of April 26, 1945, he reduced the figure to 25 million. But even this was too bizarre for French intelligence. And in his second memorandum, signed at Rottweil on May 4, 1945, he brought the figure closer to the 6 million preferred at the Nuremberg Trials. Gerstein's sister-in-law was congenitally insane and died of euthanasia. His own behavior might well suggest a streak of mental instability. He had, in fact, been convicted in 1936 of sending eccentric mail through the post. After his 2 confessions, he hanged himself at Cherche-Midi prison in Paris. Now, this was taken from Did 6 Million Really Die, published by the Historical Review Press, page 7. Well, now, you may, at this point, be curious about the population of Jews in the world just prior to all this, so it kind of gives you a grounding in this particular matter, this important aspect. So consider, the World Almanac of 1938 gives the number of Jews in the world as 16,588,259. But after the war, the New York Times, February 22nd, 1948, placed the number of Jews in the world at a minimum of 15 million and a maximum of 18 million. Quite obviously, these figures make it impossible for the number of Jewish wartime casualties to be measured in anything but thousands. 15.5 million in 1938 minus the alleged 6 million leave 9 million. Given the New York Times figures and a typically modest birth rate among Jews, and you have an improbability at the level of the absurd, it would appear hence that the great majority of the missing 6 million were in fact immigrants. Immigrants to European countries, to the Soviet Union and the United States, as well as to other countries before, during, and after the war. Well, that's it. That's a wrap. This is iVideo. My name is John Sabers. I'm your host. I'm glad that you tuned in. I hope to see you again next time. This is a first in the beginning of a series of perhaps several.